So I'm a little excited today because I'm heading off to a rehearsal, and I've been looking forward to this for a few days because they texted me a few days ago, and there is, I think, a new microphone waiting for me to try out. I don't normally get excited about microphones, but I am excited to try this one out. So let's head to rehearsal. All right, there it is. That is the new Lauten Audio Snare Mic. So we're gonna see how this thing sounds like this week. So I did a little bit of work in virtual soundcheck. I just tweaked a couple of things from rehearsal. So here is what that snare is starting to sound like. So let's just look at the mics that are on the drums just in general. Snare mic is obviously, it's this new Lauten Snare Mic. Got some drum debris I can see on there from rehearsal. This is KSM 137 on the hi-hat. Actually need to use that a little bit more now with this snare mic. Cymbals are Earthworks. I can't see the model. I'll have to look it up, and maybe I'll put it on the screen. Beta 98s on the toms. I just prefer condenser mics on drums as much as possible because these cymbals sound better off axis in condensers. I love the way like 421s, I love the way toms sound with something like a 421, but I hate the way cymbals sound bleeding into 421s, and for that reason, I just don't really want to use them much anymore. One of the other things I'm doing right now, experimenting with this is a KSM, I think it's a 44, and let me go to a different angle. You can see that KSM 44, that's just kind of miking the shell of the snare. Might actually bring that up a little bit before the service, but it was sounding good in rehearsal. And that's just kind of filling in some tonal stuff, and it's just another sound. I don't really ever like bottom snare mics. I think they sound horrible. But with the new snare mic, I don't really need a bottom mic at all. So I moved that from the bottom back to the side. I had it on the side, then I put it on the bottom, and now it's back on the side, and we'll see how long that sticks. Kick mic, hard to see from here. I think it's a Sennheiser 901 inside, and then there is this, I believe it's a big Telefunken thing out front. So I don't remember when we switched these cymbal mics to be under the cymbals. They used to be overheads, but one of the issues that I always had in here was for me to put the overheads where I really want them, because there's this big screen right here. If I put the overhead mics where I really want to put them, they are in the sight lines for a lot of people out in the house. Perfect world, I would much rather have overhead microphones, but you know, when sight lines are an issue, these work just fine for me. I'm here with my friend Luke Robinson. He's playing drums today. He's also producer. We've gone 2 weeks now with this new Snare Mic. What are you thinking on it? Because you've been listening to it in your in-ears, which to me it's real important. What are the musicians hearing? Because that's going to affect how they play. So you listen to your ears, you listen to the tracks in your studio a little bit too from rehearsal the other night. Mm-hmm. So what are you thinking?
First, I really like the blend of the mic. Especially using in-ears. I have quad drivers in mine from Sensophonic. And they 57s do the job. I like the 57s. Even in my studio, I'm using a Telefunken M80 and mixed with the 57 and then a couple of other Lauten, actually a Lauten pencil condenser. But with this new Snare Mic, man, the body and the fullness you get in that mid-range mixed with the clarity. It's just to say everything. It's like the perfect Snare Mic. But it's really good, especially when I hear it in my studio. It sounds very full, and you can actually use it how you want. Honestly, I would love to see how two of them sound. Like one on top and
put it on the bottom.
Well, you know what I'm saying? It's like one of those mics you just want to use on everything. And just to see how it sounds.
I'd be curious what would it even do on toms.
Right. And honestly, man, the clarity that it has just.
So if I bring the 57 back next week, what are you going to think?
I am going to, for sure, become sick and wait for the Lauten to come back. No, but honestly, though, I think that's the great blend. That Snare Mic is just, I love it. I really do. And I was kind of skeptical at first. I've been all in on Telefunken for a minute, and they make a great product. Mm-hmm. Great product.
And so is Telefunken on it, so.
Yeah, right. And so, but, but I've always been a fan of Lauten, especially I was always telling you about that FC387, that Atlantis. I got to get my hands on that because that bad boy, I wanted that for vocals, but people were putting that like a kick out or a room or something like that. And I thought, dude, that's dope. So to see them come out with the Snare Mic, man, and for it to be exactly what I thought it was going to be and more, like I'm in love, man. That bad boy's nice. Like, hands down.
Cool. All right, so I got the tracks. Let's head back to my studio and check out this Snare Mic. All right, I am back in my studio. I have the tracks that I recorded from the service, just multi-track straight off the board, no EQ or processing or anything on those so that we can listen to this mic now in a much more controlled environment. Before I dig in on these, I just want to say that this video is not sponsored in any way. Nothing was given to us for trying this out. I do want to say thank you, though, to Decatur City Church because they purchased this microphone thanks to Jared Roman, production director, David Farmer, music director. I recommended that we get this mic to try out, and I'm really glad I recommended that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I just have the raw snare here. There is no processing on it at all. Everything is bypassed. I'm just going to play you. This is what that mic was hearing. In terms of placement, it was about 2 fingers above the rim, just a little bit over the rim, and then I like to point it right at the middle. I basically use the same placement that I use with a 57. Let's play that snare so you can hear it. This is just the raw snare recorded, and this is the Lauten Snare Mic. I've just got it soloed up. So here we go. So just raw right out the gate, that sounds pretty good. I do have some equalization things that I'm feeling I want to do right away. But for a starting point for a close mic on a snare drum, I'm pretty happy with this. Now, one thing I want to show you, so I had another microphone on the snare, and this was kind of a side mic, sort of miking the shell. If I zoom in to the waveforms for you, you can see that like they are pretty much right on with each other. So in terms of distance, this side mic is about the same distance as that top snare mic, which was the Lauten mic. The side snare mic is a KSM-44. I showed that a little earlier in the video. And I just want you to listen to, well, I mean, they're going to sound different because they're two different microphones, but listen to how much bleed is in that side mic. And that side mic is actually further away from the hi-hat than the Lauten snare mic is. So just listen to the difference between them. And I'll start with the Lauten snare mic, and then I'll flip over to the side mic. Right away, I'm hearing more hi-hat in that side mic than I am in the Lauten, and they're both kind of positioned the same. If anything, the KSM-44 that's on the side of the snare, the hat is probably closer to the null of that mic than it was on the Lauten snare mic, and there's just a whole lot more. Now, one thing that is pretty obvious to me is with that Lauten mic, it is a darker, I don't know if I want to say it's a darker mic, but what it's capturing definitely feels darker compared to that side snare mic. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'll just put a little bit of EQ on the top of this just to kind of hear what's going to happen to the bleed when I really try and EQ this to get a little more of the crack out of it, which is kind of what I want right now. So I'll just loop it and put a little bit of EQ on this. All right, so without any EQ, and then I'll turn on the EQ. Putting EQ on there is definitely bringing up some of that bleed a little bit, but it's still not terrible to me. And the thing that I like about this mic too, and it's probably because it's a condenser, but that bleed that's in there, it's not all hashy and weird sounding. And that's one of the things with dynamic microphones that I just don't like. I mean, I like the way drums sound in dynamic microphones, but the bleed from other stuff around it, when it starts to get off axis, to me, it just sounds like garbage. And that's a big reason why I have really been trying to move towards condenser microphones on toms lately, because, you know, with a lot of the kind of CCM and worship music that I am working on, there is a lot of crash ride. And when you get that bleed in a floor tom mic, it is just brutal and horrible, and it is the worst parts of the cymbal. And with this Lauten mic, I don't feel like I'm getting the worst parts of the cymbal that are in there bleeding in. I mean, yeah, I'm getting more bleed than I want, because I always have more bleed probably than I want. If I start compressing this the way I'm going to want to compress it to get a little more punch out of it as well, that's going to bring up a lot of that bleed as well. So I always have that kind of in the back of my mind, but this is not a bad place to start from, and I feel like I can clean this up really easily here in the studio. And when I was working live, I didn't feel like it was out of control. Like everything was manageable for me. I never felt like I was fighting bleed. So it's been pretty cool like that. And I also feel like this microphone, while I don't necessarily feel like I need to crank on an EQ with it, I do feel like it takes EQ quite well. There is a lot of body in it. I don't feel like I need to do the boost sort of in that 100 to 200 hertz range like I end up doing on a lot of snare drums. It's just full. It's got all the stuff I want. To me, it's kind of what I dream of a 57 sounding like, which is maybe a little strange to say. Maybe, I don't know how Lauten feels about that, but it's kind of, this is what I want a snare to sound like. There might be something else out there, now or someday that I haven't tried that maybe I would like better. But right now, I really am enjoying using this Lauten Snare Mic. It's just, I don't even know how to explain it. I just feel like I can use it. I don't feel like I have to do a lot of work. I don't feel like I'm fighting against something in the frequency response of the microphone. But at the same time, this isn't an enormous departure from what I feel like I'm used to. And to me, that's a good sign, because a lot of times when I will try a microphone on something like a snare drum, it will end up being like a big change from where I was coming to. And I'll find myself with that eventually. I just kind of start going back to what I was using because I start to miss something. With this microphone, I feel like I have the stuff I liked from when I was using Beta 57, but I also have some other stuff in there that I feel like I was missing. Like I'm getting more body out of the snare. And with everybody right now and the music I'm doing, everybody's still kind of doing big fat snare drums. This is really helpful. And, it's just working. The snare drum here, by the way, this is a Ludwig Black Beauty 14 by 6.5 inch snare drum, which is my favorite snare drum of all time. So maybe I'm a little biased because I'm working with that, but I don't know. I just like it. So let me do something else on this. I'm going to put a little bit of kind of a gate expander on this to kind of deal with the bleed. So I'm just going to turn the range down a little bit and see what happens. So right there, that really kind of cleans up that bleed. It still feels sort of natural. I feel like I've got more snare in there, and I just think it sounds pretty good. If I throw a compressor on there, let's just see what our friend the SSL channel compressor does. Here, let's go over here, and now we can go back and forth. All right. So I just think it sounds pretty good. Let me play it. So I'll put the whole thing in context here. I'm going to turn that off and go back to what I had dialed in on here. So first up, got a little bit of gating thanks to silencer, and check out how well this cleans up now. the silencer from Black Salt Audio. This thing, I did a little video on this, and boy, it really is becoming a big part of my workflow. So it just does what I want it to do. It's really nice. Put some EQ on that. Little compression. So without the processing, and then I'll toggle it all back on. It just sounds like a great snare drum to me. I feel like with this mic, some of the things that in the past I might have reached for a sample to get a characteristic out of the drum, I feel like I can get that more just from this mic, and I don't have to lean on a sample the same way. I'm sure I will still use samples with things recorded with this, but to not need to go to that, if I add in that side mic, here's what's going to happen with that. So I just like how it's kind of filling the sound out, and I kind of like that I'm getting a little hi-hat bleed in there. Honestly, it's somewhat controlled, but it just makes it feel a little more natural. I'm going to put a little bit of spank on the overall thing. So if I throw it into context with the whole band, let's see what we're at. All right, so I'm going to add a little more tonal EQ on there and some saturation stuff. And let's see what that does. Get some effects on. Little extra salt, one more thing. So, Lauten Snare Mic, I think it sounds really good. I kind of wish I had one of these in my kit just to carry around with me to live gigs, because I know I'm going to run into some of them in over the next year or so, I would imagine, where I'm not going to have this. But man, I really hope more people start picking these up, especially people I get to work with here in town in Atlanta, because I just really like this microphone. And I don't usually get excited about microphones, but snare drum is one of those things that's a little more important to me than other things. And, snare drums and vocals. And I dig this. So anyways, got other questions? If there's something I didn't talk about or something I didn't mention, ask away, and I'll try and answer it for you in the comments. But thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.